Joining us now, our next guests on the show are Richard Plowden, the Chief Martial Arts Therapist at the Hero Circle, as well as Rabbi Goldberg, the founder and Global Director of Kids Kicking Cancer. Joining us today to talk about the 501c3 nonprofit organization that offers evidence-based martial arts therapy to kids. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So let's start with you, Rabbi. The key word here is evidence-based martial arts therapy. Explain what that is and how a program like this, you can use martial arts to provide a therapeutic outlet for children.
So thank you so much. I'm also a clinical assistant professor in pediatrics. So we have been able to study the impact of intervention with children having all different types of pain. Our organization began as Kids Kicking Cancer, and many people know us as Kids Kicking Cancer. My first teacher in that world was my 2-year-old daughter, who was diagnosed with leukemia at a time that leukemia was not the very treatable disease it is today. And I found myself, after she passed away, running a camp for kids with cancer. 5-year-old child is having his port accessed inside of his chest for his chemotherapy. 2 nurses are pinning him down. The 3rd nurse has a large syringe to plunge into his chest, and he was yelling something awful. And it was so counter. I just yelled, "Wait!" And they all stopped. Even the child stopped screaming, and they looked at me. And frankly, I didn't have a clue what I was going to say next. And I just said to the nurses, "Could you give me 5 minutes with this child?" And they were happy to leave. And the little boy looked at me like I was the governor. I had just stayed his execution. And I told this child that I'm a black belt, which doesn't mean anything. To a little kid, it's a wow. Said, "You want me to teach you some karate?" I almost jumped off the table. So it's in the martial arts, you learn that pain is a message you don't have to listen to. You can breathe in this amazing chi, this energy, and push out the pain. Watch me. And 5 minutes later, we're doing a simple Tai Chi breathing technique. 20 minutes later, they pulled out the needle, and he looked at me, and he said, "Did you do it yet?" And that began Kids Kicking Cancer. We began a program with 10 children, Children's Hospital of Michigan. And now we see children in 11 countries, in 124 facilities across the globe, with a goal of lowering the pain of 1 million kids. But they believe in the martial arts. So that's a vector to get into their heads, change their pain perception, but more importantly, the 3 words we use, power, peace, purpose. We ask these children, "What's your purpose?" They yell out all across the planet, "To teach the world." And when they teach, people listen.
We're joined by Rabbi Goldberg as well as Richard Plowden from the Hero Circle through Kids Kicking Cancer, joining us today on the MegaCast. So in terms of the services that are provided through this program, what are some of those services that are provided, and what children are eligible to participate in these programs?
So we have 3 major cycles of the program. Number 1 is pediatric pain. So we work with children in pain in hospitals, pain clinics, literally, again, around the globe. And certainly here in Michigan, we are very well focused. The second group is children in trauma in schools. So we goes into schools. There was a school that actually did a beautiful fundraising event for us before COVID. They wanted to raise $10,000. They ended up raising $20,000 and gave it to us in a very emotional presentation in the school gym. That was Oxford Public High School. So now we're working intimately with children with trauma. We have a social emotional learning, but what's different in our curriculum that we offer to schools, we have a very large program in Oak Park, which will now be expanding into other districts. As we explain to the children, we have an agenda. We work with children in Zimbabwe and Zambia who don't have pain medication. If you do this, you can help them. So empowering the children to use their breath, and of course, it's all about empowerment. And Richard Plowden, who's on the screen, will be on the screen in a moment. So Richard is a 5-time world champion. So we have martial artists teaching the children that they have the power. So it's children who are sick, children with trauma in schools and other circumstances. And then we have an ARI working with people who have all types of challenges to be incentivized by the kids. And we did a study just published in the Journal of Pain Medicine, where our kids were able to work with my colleagues at the Detroit Medical Center and lower the craving and pain of heroin and fentanyl addicts. So it's actually very fascinating how the Hero Circle really is a circle of allowing children in trauma to not only transcend that trauma, but have a purpose for it, because they're helping to teach the world.
We're joined by Rabbi Elimelech Goldberg, founder and global director of Kids Kicking Cancer, as well as Richard Plowden, the chief martial arts therapist of the Hero Circle. So, Richard, being a martial arts expert as yourself, as you're teaching these kids to alleviate their pain or to better channel their response to pain through martial arts, it's a complicated process because for the average person, that's not something that clicks right away. It requires a lot of training and it requires a process. So where do you start with kids who have been through a trauma, who are trying to channel their pain in a more productive way and address those issues that come from that trauma? Where do you start that process, and how typically for a child that's in this program does that come along to where the martial arts of this program are there then helping them therapeutically work through some of these issues?
Well, what winds up happening is validation. And what being a martial artist and being a black belt does is right away, in a child's eyes, they think that we're supermen, right? Rabbi G likes to say that the martial artists are the people who beat the bad guys in the movies. So right away with young people, we have some level of validation. And then it's up to us to get inside their heads and let them know that they are the true heroes, that they are powerful martial artists, and that they can help to change the world. And the great thing about it is that we use the martial arts as a metaphor. It's not that we're teaching them how to spar. We have a no contact type of program. We don't do any board breaking at all, but we get inside their heads and let them know through meditations and breathing techniques that they can fight whatever is coming their way because they are powerful martial artists. And being able to get kids to buy into that, truthfully, is not as difficult as it may sound.
We're joined by Richard Plowden, chief martial arts therapist, as well as Rabbi Elimelech Goldberg, the founder and global director of Kids Kicking Cancer, joining us today on the MegaCast. And so in terms of your programming, particularly you, Rabbi G, over the course of the pandemic, how has your organization's operations had to change to continue to have been able to provide this immense impact positively on the lives of children who have experienced trauma, especially now the compounded trauma of a global pandemic as well, despite martial arts being such a physical and an in-person and a communicative art and therapeutic act?
So the assessment of martial arts is really the power of the mind. We have literally hundreds of martial artists that we've trained across the globe, and multiple styles. The key to all of them is the power of the mind, the ability to allow the child to feel that spirit. So as you very articulately presented, there are more children who are going to die, God forbid, not from the virus, but from the mental health issues that have risen because of this pandemic. And as we're seeing that trauma grow, getting to the children, even in their homes, where we can work with the child, with the parents, and with their family setting, and then bringing the children together. We have global dance parties where kids across the globe are partying together, celebrating their strength. We bring the children now virtually to teach companies how to breathe in the light and blow out the darkness. So as I mentioned, even though we started teaching children, we have evolved where the children are teaching adults. Just with adults, we talk slower. So the ability to allow the children now through a virtual platform to remain connected, to remain committed, to focus on their inner power and focus on what they have versus what they have not is really the key to success. And we're seeing this blossom, and we're seeing, Tyler, the need growing significantly.
So how does the program help children that have been dealing with the stress, particularly of a cancer diagnosis or other major disease diagnosis? Because that psychologically, that is a great toll for any person, for an adult especially. But for a child, they're going to have a different reaction to that. They're going to have a different thought on that, because at that young age, whether it be a small child or even a teenager or someone late in their youth and their teen years, there's always going to be a different reaction to that as they are facing a potential tough road ahead, or potential death even from a horrible disease.
You know, before COVID, I was teaching in a hospital in Milan. And they brought me, the doctor asked, would I meet this young lady? She was just recently diagnosed with a terrible tumor. She was healthy 2 weeks ago. Now she's facing disfigurement and possible death, and quite depressed. And as soon as I met this young lady and she was surrounded by her doctor and her mom, I looked at her and I said, you know, I have an agenda. There are a lot of kids in this hospital, a lot of younger children who could so use our meditative, our breathing, our techniques of empowerment, but our best teachers are young people who are going through it. You'd be an amazing teacher for us. If I could teach this to you, would you be willing to help other kids? Like all of a sudden a light turned on inside of her head. Like there's a purpose for what I'm going through. We did a 10-minute meditation, and you could see her face and her affect change within minutes. And when she opened up her eyes after that breathing meditative technique, I asked her, how do you feel? And she said, fantissimo. I feel fantastic. Her mom and her doctor started to cry. What I did was nothing but give her a sense of purpose, as well as a technique of regulation. In the old days, we used to teach in medical school, there's a pain center in the brain. It's not true. There's a whole neuromatrix, which means that if you're afraid, if you're angry, there's no purpose to the pain, the actual nociception, the pain message, scoots all the way up. And again, we've done functional MRIs, we can see it. When you give a child the ability to have a purpose for what he or she is going through, and give them a regulatory technique to actually take control and feel that they can control their pain, we can see black and white and different colors in an fMRI that you can lower the pain of a child.
And so let's go back to Richard Plowden, the chief martial arts therapist of the Heroes Circle, a global healing and wellness initiative inspired by the children of kids kicking cancer. Richard, for parents that are dealing with a child that may be experiencing trauma, whether it be medical, whether it be psychological, something they've experienced at school and other areas of their life, if they're not able to get into a program such as Kids Kicking Cancer or into another form of martial arts or some therapeutic effort such as this, what are some steps that they can take at home to encourage their child to address these issues using the power of the mind and techniques that martial arts employs to help children address these issues through programs like Kids Kicking Cancer?
Well, as Rabbi said, you know, the strongest weapon that any of us has happens to be our brain, and being able to get inside the heads of young people. Well, first get inside the heads of parents, because one of the challenges that we have is not the young people embracing our program, but really getting past the gatekeeper, who happens to be the parent who thinks, wow, martial arts and my kid has cancer. Those two don't seem to match up. But once we explain to them the power of meditation, the power of our breathing techniques, then they wind up buying in and becoming really supporters for, we've seen individuals become supporters for decades. But in answer to your question, the key is, again, for the parents to get inside their heads and offer encouragement to young people, because being diagnosed with a particular disease, I hate to put it like this, but it's not really a death sentence. It's an opportunity to expand on the positive that could be implanted in their head and that they can move forward towards. As Rabbi G likes to say, they're teachers. So they're teaching the world, they're teaching other people how to handle stress, how to handle anger, how to handle frustration. I've been with the organization for 17 years. As Rabbi G said, I'm a 5-time world champion, been doing martial arts for 47 years. But what I've learned from the children that we have in our program has been immenseful. So they flipped the script on us.
And I would also add just one thing, that wherever a parent is today, go onto our website, because there are opportunities now for us to work with children, again, literally across the planet on a digital platform.
We're joined by Rabbi Elimelech Goldberg. He's the founder of Kids Kicking Cancer, as well as their global director, and Richard Plowden, the chief martial arts therapist. And so, both you gentlemen, this is a fantastic program that's helping so many children in a unique way address their traumas, particularly on the psychological side of things, which, of course, has an immense impact on the entire reaction of their body and their recovery from a trauma, or the process of continuing to go through and deal with the trauma as it's ongoing. So at this moment in time, for your 501c3 nonprofit organization, what are the best ways that our community can help support the efforts that you're doing by supporting these children in this unique way?
We have multiple opportunities to just sign on to our website, kidskickingcancer.org. We have many volunteers, but because we're a clinical program, we need to be able to have coordinators and therapists that we train do this full time. So we are always in need of expansion to be able to build our program, the ability to build it here in the southeastern Michigan and to continue its growth, to reach more kids. Yesterday had a beautiful holiday drive-by party for the kids, and to see their smiles despite being in cars and not only getting their treats, but wearing their uniforms, being powerful martial artists. We invite parents of children who have pain and stress and trauma to join us. We invite the community who are philanthropists to help us, and we invite the community to come out when we have events to let the children know that they're the ones teaching the world. And that we call power, peace, purpose.
Again, that is kidskickingcancer.org. Rabbi Richard, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us, Tyler.